Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching this live or replaying this. Excited to be back here on the ERG resource session. My name is Lola Adeyemo, and I'm the founder of a consultancy called EQI Mindset, where I partner with corporate leaders on building inclusive workplace through empowering the communities within their organization. And so a few years ago, I started the All Things ERG call. Every first Friday, we're gathering with ERG leaders and DEI leaders around providing support and real time coaching and conversation for ERG leaders. But out of that monthly ERG call, these sessions emerged, kind of the need for it, because we had a lot of tools and technologies and platforms and thought leaders that were developing pretty cool stuff outside of the workplace. How do we connect those building systems, building solutions outside of the organizations to the organizations that need it? The ERG leaders, ERG's employee resource group, these leaders are in a unique position to do that. And so this conversation was started so that we could spotlight some of these for ERG leaders, but ultimately for the organization. And so I love bringing, especially founders, co-founders, the people that started it all, because part of the opportunity on this call is that we get to dive into the why. What was the problem they were solving for? What have they been hearing? And so today, that's why I am here with Scott Strother around a conversation on feedback. So, Scott, you want to say hi first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I appreciate it. And thank you, Lola, for inviting me. This is a subject near and dear to my heart. The idea of employee resource groups. Employees have always been at the heart of what we do at WelliQ. And my background has been many, many years in corporate America. And roughly 8 years ago, peeled off with my co-founder, and we started what is now WelliQ. And as I mentioned, we're extremely focused on employee engagement, and part of that is feedback. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here with you, Scott. So, it's Q4. I don't know when you're watching or listening to these, but we all know that Q4, Q1 timeframe is around when everybody is talking about feedback. And a lot of the people I'm in conversation with are HR leaders, DEI leaders. So we always have that conversation at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year. And most organizations launch an annual survey. And I also worked in corporate America before I started consulting. So I know that's usually when everybody will do it. But part of the conversation I wanted to have with Scott around this is, what are some of those issues and challenges with launching an annual survey at the same time every year? Does it really work? And what have you found?
Yeah, well, and first of all, let me say that as ERG leaders and folks who are generally interested in bettering their organization, it's a great thing that you're doing a survey at all, because what we've found is that a lot of times leadership teams will assume that they know things. They
Mm,
will kind of meet with each other and decide what the problem is and what the solutions are. And we've always regarded that as a pretty narrow approach to really trying to get feedback and make changes based on that feedback. And I think while it's laudable to do that annual survey, one of the key problems about feedback in general is that it isn't done frequently enough. And so what we've seen as kind of challenges with an annual survey, an annual employee survey, and it's a lot of what Lola just mentioned, which is you get to this end of the year and you say, okay, oh, it's time to get our feedback and our survey done so that we can set it up and we can be good for next year. We're going to get this feedback, we're going to implement the changes, and everyone's going to be happy. And the problem with that is it doesn't always work that way. The timeline is compressed.
mm,
You're at the end of the year. And I can tell you that when we were in corporate America, uh, one of the frustrations was exactly that. You would always do your review or do your feedback session or do your corporate annual survey at the end of the year. And it always felt like it was backward looking. And so that for a lot of organizations creates a challenge in and of itself, because you have a tendency to kind of look back and structure something that puts a favorable light on what has happened, and
Accomplished.
some people might call it revisionist, but the real point is that I worked for a Japanese company for many years, and they had a term called nimawashi. And nimawashi was a Japanese term of, we're going to decide and talk about the issue, the problem beforehand, so that when the actual event comes up, when it comes time to send that survey or do that thing, it's a formality because we've spent time in the background already talking about it. And so for feedback for that annual survey, it's very similar to that. I use that story because it was sort of central to myself and my co-founder when we founded our company. But it really isolates three things that I think are very important when it comes to getting any kind of feedback in any kind of organization that has a employee set, that has a client set, that has partners. And one of those things is around, you have to figure out the proper methodology. How are you going to ask for that feedback? And methodology really has to do with content and the format of that content.
Mm.
A lot of companies that we've dealt with will make the mistake of thinking, as long as we are asking the right questions, then we're going to get the right feedback. But what that doesn't really address is the audience, knowing your audience. Is it relevant to the folks you're asking for feedback? In this case, presumably your employees. The other thing about methodology is that it has got to be easy to use. When we started out with our company, we really were focused on, how to make it easy and simple on the front end. So keeping that audience in mind, understanding what's relevant to them. So methodology is super important. And really it's because any process of feedback, you have to get completion rates. You have to have those folks who are going to actually give you that critical mass of feedback so that you can apply it to something.
Right.
It's important that something is actionable, and it's important that it's visible throughout your organization. So I think one of the first challenges to any kind of feedback process is the method, and you really need to be kind of laser focused on that.
Yeah. And I like that. I mean, the method, the frequency. So the challenge with 1 year, as you said, is um, I don't remember what I worked on yesterday. You know, I, I I had one of the roles I had in corporate America. I remember we used to have a monthly, and it felt like a lot of work. Like every month, what projects did you work on? What did you do? But at the end of the year, when I'm trying to write my performance feedback for the year, it makes it easier because now I've got 12 to look back on, right? So we're talking about the challenge with frequency, the challenge with methodology. Um, so but also, this also applies to ERGs, and I talk about this all the time with companies that have employee resource group. You're trying to solve for a problem, but have you listened to your ERG leaders, and in what form? How many touch points? Right?
Yeah.
Are you putting your touch points for collecting feedback in the areas where people are really going to provide feedback, or are you trying to just do it to say we did it? Well, nobody responded.
Oh,
How did you
that's
do it?
music to my ears, Lola, because you just hit on a couple of really important parts, including, are you just checking a box, or are you actually trying to get something done? But the thing that you hit on is really my next point, which is consistency. It's
Mm,
very important that you're consistent in when that feedback is given. And consistency is all about timeliness and cadence, how often you're doing it. And Lola, you just pointed that out. If you're not doing something throughout the year, and again, I'll go back to this concept of Nimawashi. You're doing this, you're having these conversations throughout the year, so that at the end of the year, it's really just a formality. It's a summary of meetings and discussions that you're having throughout the year. So there are no surprises. But the
Yeah.
consistency piece is important because if you're doing it consistently throughout the year, it allows you to course correct. One of the values of doing a survey or getting feedback more frequently throughout the year is that you can be nimble. You can actually use that data and you can apply it throughout the year so that it's not this culmination at the end of the year and then you're scrambling to apply it so that you can, so that the budgets can reflect things as you go into the next year. And
Right.
it's important because that consistency drives response rates. So Lola, it's exactly what you said. When you sit down for your annual performance review, and again, I'm using the idea of a yearly kind of employee survey, but really this is all feedback. And
Right.
HR specialists, you understand that it's extremely important when you do performance appraisals. When you sit down with your team throughout the year and you talk with them about kind of what's going on and what the challenges are and how you can help, it makes that process ultimately easier. It always does, and it always drives response rates. Another example in healthcare is, we have our product is a real time survey, and in the market are surveys that aren't happening all the time, every week, every appointment. And so you end up having this one survey that might be sent out after the fact, or maybe it's a required survey by a government entity that's reimbursing you for something. But that's always a point in time. If you have already asked those folks for feedback throughout the
Right. Yeah.
year, it's going to be way easier. You're going to get better response rates. You're going to get more quality data
Yeah.
overall. So thank you for teeing that up, Lola, because the consistency
Yeah.
is another critical challenge.
Yeah, and okay, so you dived into something that I wanted to also now talk about, which is your tool and technology. So we know that everything is moving, leaning towards technology right now. These days, there's a tool for everything, and we all have our phones. Everybody is doing stuff on their phone. Computer emails are getting bombarded with stuff. So most times, people are looking for how to touch it. And I think one of the things I liked, and you've kind of shown me a little bit about WellIQ. So I want you to talk about why you developed that and how it's used. But I also want to highlight that. So for the people listening, we have companies and leaders. This tool is something that you apply in the corporate space, but I really like the fact that you have it in the healthcare space because I think, when we look at the spectrum, I think that space that you have applied it, right? If it works very well in that space, it will work very well in this space. And I use myself as an example is the healthcare system is just very, there's so many touch points. You want to do one thing and somebody checks you in, somebody takes your details, somebody measures your vitals, then you see a doctor, and then you see another specialist, and then you see another there's so many touch points, and a lot of time I've had to stay in the NICU before with my child, and I talk about I had so many amazing nurses. At the end of the process, I'm like, I don't even remember this person's name, but I had such a great experience. Right? I wish somebody had asked me for feedback at every point because I can easily give it in real time. So, tell us a little bit about WellIQ, why you started it, and how it works.
Yeah, for sure. So I appreciate that. And and so we solve a problem, and in your story, your analogy about healthcare is perfect because my co-founder, he had a scenario similar. He was in travel. He was on a trip with his family, and he had a great experience, on an airplane, and he realized that there was no way to give that flight attendant feedback. She would never know how greatly she affected that experience. Her bosses would never know. Her company would never know. So that was really the genesis of what became WellIQ, and we set out to solve that problem. A couple of things we've mentioned today: methodology, consistency, and probably the next biggest thing is really objectivity. When we set out to do WellIQ, there were two things in our mind. We wanted to make surveys sexy, which was a hard thing to do. We wanted to make surveys something that people actually wanted to fill out. but we also wanted to drive objectivity and feedback. We were, very frustrated with how many companies, corporations, or organizations, will base feedback on subjective, scenarios,
Mm.
a feeling, a sense, and a lot of times that would be when that feedback is limited to, your superior or someone you report into. They are, kind of by design, they're going to have a more objective perspective, a more subjective perspective than objective. So that was the other thing that we really kind of thought about. How do we make this process objective? Because we knew that if it was objective, it would be more useful. And
Right.
so as we talked about developing our platform, first, kind of front and center for us was this relationship between clients and staff, and nurturing that dependency. So every employee has a job to do. They represent, the organization, but and they're certainly the lifeblood of the organization. But so are your clients. So you have clients and you have employees, and they end up being the two most important kind of customer groups. So we wanted to come up with a survey people wanted to fill out. We wanted it to be able to incorporate objective feedback and kind of drive that employee and customer dependency. And we really felt that if we can do that, and we can make it kind of, easy on the front end, and useful to the folks giving the survey on the back end, that would be something that would flourish. And that's exactly what we set out to do. Initially we started out in the consumer end of things, where we were, just trying to find a way that people could give feedback to their contacts, and endorse their experiences, regardless of the industry. Healthcare is a great example, Lola, but it could be travel, it could be hospitality, it could be entertainment. But we started out in that kind of realm. And we were, when we got into healthcare, we realized right away that, healthcare was in need of something, some kind of a feedback platform that hit on all these things, that hit on the right method, the right consistency, emphasize objectivity, and most importantly, let companies focus on their staff, focus on kind of recognizing and rewarding what those staff were doing throughout the year, and doing
Right.
it in a way that would resonate, with those staff members.
Right. Right. And the solution aspect of it is, I think that's also pretty cool. It's like it's not just giving them a platform to do the survey, is helping them with insights from the feedback, right? Guiding them with
Absolutely,
where are we going. And is that built in?
absolutely. Like if for us, we refer to it as actionable data. Like if we can't, if we go through the entire process of asking, some group of stakeholders for
Mhm.
feedback, but that feedback isn't actionable, isn't packaged in a way that you can apply it organizationally to making improvements, then the whole thing has been an exercise in futility,
Right.
because you've now wasted time and you have a bunch of data that isn't actionable. So
Yeah.
we very focused on that too.
Or you collect all the data and then you spend the next 6 months trying to figure out the data, and then
Yes.
before you know it, it's time for another survey.
It's exactly right. Hence your point about waiting till the end of the year. And that's exactly
Yeah.
what we've seen. And so, we had a pretty good sort of canvas to build out our solution. And part of that was because of, the experience I have, and my co-founder have in as consultants and as strategists and in corporate America. We sort of understood some of the bumps and bruises organizationally. So we wanted to solve for both large companies as well as smaller companies. And, we knew initially that we really wanted to have it be simple, had to be usable. We know, I mean, I can tell you time and time again, the millions of dollars companies will spend on survey platforms,
Mm.
and, they're not adopted, and employees don't want to do them because they're not simple. They're convoluted. They're cumbersome to get through. So making it really simple and usable on the front end was important, and then making the data informative and customizable, because you can't promote this idea of being nimble and getting feedback throughout the year and making these changes if it can't be customized, right? As leaders, you need to understand, hey, what are the questions we should be asking, and can we tailor these surveys to address those specific questions? So that's probably one of the number one things that differentiates us was this idea of balancing simplicity on the user end, but informative and actionable data and customizable feedback mechanisms on the back end.
Yeah. And I had one call with Scott already. I had a little bit of a demo. Definitely going to have a follow up. So if you're listening and you need to learn more, or you are looking for alternative solution for feedback within your organization, I'm going to recommend that you follow up with him for a chat
Yeah.
and a demo, because I thought it solved for, as a user, as a customer, and also somebody speaking to leaders. I really thought it solved for a lot of the challenges that we have. And it's something that I would use, because again, I always struggle with, I wish I could give this person feedback. So the same problem. But then, you get this clunky survey and then you get stuck, or like, oh, then you never finish it.
And part of it, when you say clunky, Lola, it's very true. Like for us, automation is important, right? You guys, as ERG folks, you don't have time to deal with a cumbersome system that is very
Right.
difficult to use. So automating it, we've done a great job of that. Being able to incentivize, people talk about incentivizing feedback. It's not an evil thing. Like in a
Oh,
corporation, many companies have rewards programs for their employees and points that they can get to spend on
right.
things. You can use those as incentives, and our platform, is very much conducive to that. And I'd say the third piece is really flexibility. You need to be flexible. I know I talked about customizability earlier, but the idea of being flexible, and in some cases for internal surveys, allowing people to give feedback anonymously. That's sounds like a small detail, but sometimes it's very important because people don't want to give objective feedback, on somebody who may be impacting their career. So, there's an anonymity component to internal surveys as well.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of put the two parts together. So we talked a little bit about the context, and I think that was important. Is also why you are the one on the call, because we're not here to sell a tool. We're trying to create that awareness for leaders, for ERGs, on the importance of real time feedback, not just the year-end annual survey, which is important. That can find its value, but how are you spreading it out over the year, over the course of your process? And so I think talking about what you've done with WelliQ and some of the clients you've worked with, and also some of the challenges and the issues that we have within organizations. What recommendations can the people listening to consider if they are looking to improve feedback within their organization, right? Regardless of the industry, what are some of the things they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think that the main thing is, try to resist the urge to build it yourself. I can tell you that trying to come up with, a robust, effective feedback system, efficient feedback system, there are vendors out there who have done it. They've done the work. It's been proven. And so instead of burdening yourself with trying to do that, I would really, look to see what are the tools out there. And I would challenge, any of those vendors out there to be able to deliver on some of the things we talked today about in terms of methodology, consistency, objectivity. So that's probably one of the number one things I would do. And then organizationally, I would really position the importance of it, which I'm certain that everyone is attempting to do that, even with an annual survey. But importance is reflected by what gets done, what gets focused on throughout the year. So if feedback's important, then it isn't something that should be left to the end of the year. It's something that should be consistent throughout the year. So I think from a strategic development perspective, commit to it organizationally as something that is going to happen throughout the entire year. So that's the second thing that I would recommend in terms of getting it done. And the third thing is, if you don't really know what you need, what questions you should be asking, your employee group, what questions you should be asking partners and potentially clients, reach out. And there are consultants, there are people who can come in and do assessments on your organization and say, these are the areas that we think you should be focused on. So part of that assessment might in fact be to do an employee survey and get that perspective, and then maybe survey some other stakeholders like partners or clients. And so that can help inform the direction that you want to take. But the commitment to it, trusting the experts, making a organizational commitment to it, and then understanding that it might be prudent to have an assessment done up front to really inform the process for you going forward and what fits your organization. Those would be the three items that I would focus on.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think it sounds simple, but a lot of these things get overlooked. Trying to do things in house and spending a long time with people that are not really like experts in that space, trying to
Yeah.
make use of what you have. I think you also mentioned the word trust. And I kind of thought that was also important in a couple of ways, right? A lot of organizations trying to do the things by themselves, either because we're trying to save money or because we think, oh, we have it in out. When it comes to feedback and survey, there's always that fear, for employees, that is it really anonymous, right? Like, is my manager not the one that is running this? Is he not going to see it? I can't really be honest. So there's a level of trust. There's a higher level of trust when it comes to bringing in a third party who can be very objective to do the assessment, as you talked about. And sometimes, that assessment can then lead to developing a more robust feedback mechanism throughout the year. So,
That's a great
um,
point, Lola. That objectivity piece, and it's tied in directly with credibility, right? You want to have a credible process that your employees can believe in, that they can trust, and sometimes that comes with distance from the subject.
yeah,
Hence the idea of being more objective.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on. Is there any last words? Any last words of wisdom?
Well, no, just
We
hey, I
wrap up.
appreciate you taking the time. We have always regarded employee groups as being, critical to any organization. We built our platform around a strong component of employee engagement, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone who is either watching this recording after the fact or is here with us today. If you want any ideas about how either WelliQ or just in general your approach to feedback, we live, eat, and drink feedback, and so I'm pretty close to it. And so I'm regarding this as just an opportunity to make myself available to talk to you, link in with me, reach out to me via our website. I'm pretty sure you posted that, Lola, the link, which
So
is
I
well.
will share. Yep, I'll share Scott's website, and if you are watching this on LinkedIn, of course you can follow him on LinkedIn or message him on LinkedIn. But if you're watching it on a different platform, the website will be on the notes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you
And
can
please
check it
feel
out.
free to reach out. I work closely with Lola. It's been a great introduction and buddying relationship. So thank you again, Lola, for having me, and everyone for listening. And I look forward to feedback, questions, and any kind of exchange we can have.
All right, thank you, Scott, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's been great diving into this topic that I thought was really timely, and I'm glad I found the right experts to come and dive into it with me, because I think the end of the year is definitely top of mind. Is also benefits and what we go with. People are kind of resetting everything for 2025, so I thought this was really timely, and I'm sure there will be some follow up questions. I would let you know. But yeah, if you are also with ERGs, I'm doing the same thing with ERGs right now. Is a lot of uh, ERG clients that I have is sort of like, what have we done so that we can reset for next year, right? But again, if you haven't been getting all this feedback throughout the year and now you just want to put everything together in 2 weeks so that you can be ready to launch the 2025 calendar, it makes it a little challenging. And I think there's also a huge opportunity to do a listen, learn from it, and then incorporate it um, when you plan it strategically. So thank you for coming on, Scott. It's been nice talking to you. And thank you, everyone,
You're
for
welcome.
joining us.
Appreciate
Bye.
it. Thanks so much, Lola. Bye bye.